This is episode 27 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 27 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Dan Chiappetta on the podcast. Dan is an interesting guy. He's got a farming hobby / occupation, as well as being a commercial banker, as well as being a real estate investor, property manager, and many, many other things. This guy's got his hand in it all. He started at the ripe young age of 21, flipping his first property for an $85,000 profit. Dan is an inspiring guy, to say the least, because he just went out there and did it. He shows no signs of looking back. He tells his story today, shows some examples of properties that he's been involved on, how he's profited on flips, how he's profiting on one of his buy and holds that he renovated. It's sure to be inspiring to many. I certainly wish that I had managed to put things together in my head so young to get that head start that Dan has been able to acquire for himself. Dan talks a lot about his vision and why he's become a real estate investor, what he's aiming to do to achieve financial independence by the age of 32. Dan's only 26 right now, so he's got some time, but he's got his numbers figured out and he's working towards this goal. Without further ado, please enjoy episode 27 with Dan Chiappetta. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Dan, and I'm going to let you say your last name.
Well, the English way to pronounce it is Chappetta, but I'm Italian, so we pronounce it Chappetta.
Chappetta?
Yeah.
Sounds much nicer in the Italian.
You could just call
format.
me Dan.
Yeah, I'm just going to call you Dan. Yeah, that works.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for coming on. So I know you made the trek up from Guelph.
Mm-hmm. Not too bad.
Farm country.
That's right.
Yeah, which I think we're going to have a little bit of a farm flair today. So.
That's all right. A little farm flair. Everyone's got to eat every day, so
yeah,
got to talk about our food somehow.
So Dan and I met at the Greater Hamilton Area REI meetup, which myself and Travis started for just this reason, to meet smart, accomplished investors who have put things together. And Dan, I know you've told me a bit about your story, but I heard a lot of stories in between, so I'm going to need you to refresh me. Why don't you just give us the rundown, what you do for a career right now and where you're at in your investing career?
Perfect. So right now, I'm doing a lot of things for my career, but primarily I'm working full-time for TD Bank. I do agriculture lending for farmers. So commercial bank, agriculture lending. So I work with primary producers and help them buy farms, build barns, anything to do with expanding their farm business. So I'm doing that full-time. And I'm also having a few other side businesses, one being real estate. I'm also running my own farm business. I do a little bit of property management, contracting, that kind of stuff. So let's just say I keep busy.
You keep busy, to say the least. So why don't we just dig into those sort of one by one?
Sure.
So you've been in the career for how long?
I've been in commercial banking for about 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah.
And you go straight into that out of school?
Right out of school, yeah.
Okay. And then how long have you been investing in real estate?
5 years. Yeah, I bought my first place in my fourth year of university. I went to University of Guelph, and I bought my first place when I was, my fourth year, just starting out.
So you got an early start.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
That's good. I wish I'd been smart enough to invest right away when I graduated. You had mentioned to me that you got into real estate. I think you did a flip to start. Is that right?
Yeah, so the first project my first few houses were all with partners because we were all young, each person brought different things to the table, and that's how we were able to be successful. So my first flip was a student house, kind of fixer-upper. It was rough shape. But my one buddy, his parents have a real estate business. So they have, they fix houses, they renovate them, and they rent them out. So at the time, they were in it for about 6 years, and they had something like 9, 10 houses. And they kept educating us on this because we were so interested in it. And they ended up putting an offer in on a property, and I knew nothing about it. And he just called me, my buddy. He said, "Hey, listen, we put an offer on this place. We didn't go see it. Do you want to buy it?" I'm like, oh my God. It was risky for me. I was like, no way. I don't have a job. I'm in summer. There's no way I can afford it. We ran the numbers. I was doing a summer gig, like a summer job placement.
Like between third and fourth year?
Between third and fourth year. And the HR department, I knew the lady at the HR department, and she put on my job description that I was full-time rather than part-time. So it helped me get that mortgage, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So we co-signed it together. My mom had to go on with 1% because she was still working, and that was what was able to
so that's how you qualified. So you're in school, and that was a flip. You bought it as a flip.
Yeah, so we bought it, and it was like knob and tube wiring. It was ugly. Like I remember pulling up to the house, and I was like, I can't believe we bought this. But at the time, Guelph was cheap, so that was like $260,000 what we bought it for. And if you know much about Guelph, that house today is probably worth almost $650,000, right? So it's tripled in value in terms of the city has grown so much with the university there and everything.
What'd you sell it for?
I sold that one for $420,000.
$420,000. So you bought for how much again?
$260,000.
$260,000 to $420,000. Do you remember ballpark profit you had on that deal?
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one because we kept putting money into it. So all of our friends, so I'll just go back. We bought it in October. It closed in on Halloween. So we had this huge kegger. We had like 500 people there to try and raise money for the renos, right?
Really?
The house got pretty much totaled at the kegger.
That's hilarious.
Because there's 500 people there. Like people were breaking windows to get in. I ended up calling the cops on our own party because I was like, I need all these people out because we made our money. The beer sold out. And I was like, trouble's going to happen, right? So anyway, it was Halloween. So it was vacant and we worked on it all winter. And I think we placed tenants for January or February or something like that. And then they only signed like a short term. And then by June, May or June, we were all done school. So me and my buddies stayed in Guelph and we just moved into that house. And what we did was we moved upstairs and during the following winter, we renovated the basement. So it was a 6-bedroom house once it's all said and done. But the 2 landlords were living in the basement, so it was legal, right?
It was just one unit, not multiple units.
One unit, it was kind of like a student house, right? So that was the objective of it. Owner-occupied student house.
That's interesting. Very ambitious of you while in school.
Yeah, it was actually a zoo to try and figure it out and manage, because I remember doing like calculus homework and trying to I got to run to the house and do this, let in trades. I didn't have a truck, a car, anything. So I remember riding my bike with like building material on my shoulder and like had a little wagon on my bicycle just to like pull some material. So it was a lot of learning has happened since that day. And
I thought I had a good story, like piling 120 2x4s in my Hyundai Sonata, which I don't have anymore. But I destroyed that car pretty good, putting materials in it.
That's all right. It's your first car, right? So you got to beat it up somehow.
Yeah, you got to do it if it's for the reno. If you're making money, you kind of feel better about it. You're like, it's a casualty. Okay, so that's interesting, and I find it fascinating that you had somebody in your life that could teach you. Could you tell me a little bit about that relationship? So
my culture is Italian, so we've always grown up with working on stuff. My parents were into rentals when they were younger, but ever since we got older, they hated it. They said, don't go into it. You're always fixing pipes. They're very risk averse, right? So growing up, I had that mentality on the rental side. But in terms of fixing and being handy, our whole family was handy. I didn't know how to start, right? So this situation was with my buddy's parents. They had a landscaping business. They were doing this and they were doing a good job at it. They had many projects on the go. And they just sparked our interest, and they led us, and they, told us, they gave us the right advice at the right time, and we made good decisions based on their advice. And eventually, we sold the property, we went our separate ways, and we both rebought. And, one of my buddies, he watches the podcast. He's a member of the real estate investing meetup. So we still talk all the time, and we're always talking about doing another project together. So
which one is it?
It's Austin.
Austin? Okay. Yeah. Also in banking.
Yep. He's in banking as well. So that's how I got him his first job out of school with the bank, because I was tight with the HR lady, and she's like, we need to hire more. Yeah. Do you have any good talent, good colleagues that you'd recommend? I said, yeah, absolutely. So
I definitely appreciate the way that these relationships form and the way that you got started so soon. I don't think everybody will respond to having somebody around them who's investing and making money from it the way you did. Like, what do you think it is about you, the way you grew up or where you came from, that made you want to to strive for this, and why did you want to do it?
Yeah, it's always been a dream of mine to have the full-time job and the side hustle on the side. Like I get bored very easily, but that's not the reason for it. I couldn't stand going home and watching Netflix. Like I need to do something. So that was my, if I buy this in university, at least when I'm not studying, because realistically, who's going to study on Friday nights and Saturdays? At least we worked on the house and we got our buddies involved and we made it fun. So we encouraged each other to keep doing that. So I mean, my parents are like that too. They always have something on the go, even though they're retired right now. They just are always doing something. So I think it's probably genetics and just the way it is that we can't sit still. So I figured if I'm gonna not sit still, I may as well make money.
I just realized this more recently. I think when we went to the meetup, but I like making money way more than I like spending it.
100%. And when you're doing stuff, you're not spending money, right?
It's true. When I was teaching at Western, I used to have the summers off, and I just watched my my bank account go down. And I had all that free time.
Yeah.
4 months off. I played golf every day. That adds up. It was fun.
But it's exactly.
I know when I was in university that, like, for me, it was kind of a bit of a pain point because I know my parents, they never really had a whole lot, and I know that they struggled. And part of the reason I wanted to go to school and got into business, I went to business school, was I wanted to do things differently. I wanted to be rich. Let's call a spade a spade. I wanted to be so wealthy that I never worried about money.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I thought was, just go get really educated. And if that's what it'll do it, PhD or whatever sort of level of education would do it. Then I realized PhDs don't really make much. Sorry, no offense to PhDs. No, some of them do, but it's not like the direction you would go just to make money. I think somewhere along the line, I stumbled into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it just reaffirmed a lot of things I was thinking. And I already had my eye on real estate. I was already in this game. And then I'm like, okay, wow, that really reaffirms I was doing this right. My head was in the right space. Did you have any sort of motivations like that?
I was very stressed my first deal. Like I didn't know what I was doing because we were all learning off of each other, right? It was a big project. There was big invoices coming in. It was like, how am I going to cover this? Plus it was because it was a first deal with a partner, like you don't iron out a partnership agreement. Nothing's clear. It's like, who's going to do what? So it wasn't as clear as if I were to enter one today. So, the first deal was, I started getting that feeling after we finished the first project, and it was like, we bought another one and it was almost uglier and it was like way bigger workload, but we're like, we can handle it now because we've done it before. And what's the worst that can happen, right? People always say, oh, I don't want to buy a house because the mortgage is so big. People think like, oh, it's a $400,000 mortgage. You have to pay it off tomorrow. It's like 1 month at a time, right? One thing at a time. And then once you realize that once you get attuned to the level of stress or project size, then you can handle something greater because you've developed, right?
So you had some people you could call on around you that had, somebody who knew maybe a tradesperson if you needed it, but you still were willing to tackle it all yourself? Yeah,
I mean, we hired trades obviously for like the stuff required to do. So insurance said it's knob and tube wiring. You got to get an electrician. Obviously, we got plumbers. We got other trades for like the HVAC. All that was done, but outsourced. But for the most part, everything in-house, everything else we kind of did ourselves. So we learned. I mean, you look at some tile jobs that we did and we're like, oh man, that's ugly. But now you just learn.
Yeah, you get better at it.
Absolutely.
Are you still doing projects where you do work yourself?
Yes and no. So it really depends. If it's my own house, like me and my fiance just bought a house last summer, and I basically took the month of August off, and me and my dad just went at it for a full month, and we did everything we possibly could to renovate it, to get it, because it was a 1970s house, and we wanted it beautiful and nice and new because it's our forever home. So yes, I still do quite a bit myself. Just this past week, we just finished a 600 square foot deck. So it's pretty
big
at
your house.
Is it? Yeah.
So
rentals, it depends, right? Time and the scope, and obviously it's a write-off to hire someone. So sometimes time and value, it's easier to just call someone. But I just take it case by case. And even if I am hiring someone, I'm usually subbing out the project. So I'm managing it. I'm just saying, okay, the tile guy's coming. Right. This, you know what I mean?
It was easier for me to hire people because I was no good at anything hands-on. Not that I don't think I'm good with my hands. I do think I am. I just, I never had any background in any of that stuff. So it was a lot easier. But I was so curious. I mean, I just love to tinker with stuff. I I love being able to frame a wall. I just, just getting to do that, having never done that in my life. When I was a kid, my parents built houses, so I kind of got to see it. And I do remember getting up on the roof and helping shingle it when I was like 9 years old, which is kind of an interesting memory. But and hanging drywall with them. So I had some roots in that. But I went to school, never did anything handy in high school. So when hiring people, I felt it was kind of important that I got my hands dirty just so that I could know what made sense and what didn't when I'm talking to trades. If some trade tries to blow smoke, then I know. I know what that job should take. I've done that even myself, and knowing that I'm not very good at this.
That's right.
An experienced person should take roughly this long. If you're making X number an hour, then this job should cost roughly this.
Yep.
And it gave me a good basis, which I would almost recommend it for anybody if you want to get into managing renos. I mean, you don't have to, but it's not a bad thing.
At least hurts. You know the jobs you like, the jobs you don't like, and then you can go from there. And ultimately, for young guys like us, you get 3 quotes and they're all over the map because they may be judging you based on how you dress, what you drive. So a lot of the time it's just trying to figure out, okay, like you said, how long is this job going to take? And should we, is this guy out to lunch here on the price?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't like the number you get, you say go away. And
That's right.
Start doing it yourself, maybe.
That's right.
Yeah. Or you go find guys hourly on Kijiji or Craigslist or whatever. And I've done that too. And it's not the way you want to end up, 3 years down the road. But if, on day one, if that's what you got to do, sometimes you do it.
That's all part of the learning process, right?
Okay, so just before we switch gears, did you know roughly what your profit number? So it was you and your roommate that...
it was me and my buddy bought that at the time, but because we had split roles, there was a bit of equity buyout. Like I bought more shares of the project because I was financing a lot of it. So, I mean, all said and done, I think I walked away with about like $85K. And for a 21-year-old, that was a lot of money once it all said was done.
That's huge, $85K at 21 years old.
It was the first-time home buyers, but you did the 5% down, and they tacked on the CMHC insurance on top. Yeah. So we didn't really touch the mortgage in the few years that we held it because it was just the CMHC premiums that we paid a little bit off, right? So no, it was definitely a good project, but I would say the learnings was exponentially way more worth it than the money made. The money made set me up for the next project, and the mindset of where to go with this, or sparked my interest.
Right. I mean, it just changes everything when you 100%. Make that kind of money on a single deal, especially when it's fun. Like I find real estate fun.
It was fun. Problem with me is though, if I get a check like that, you think I'm going to go and, I'm very cautious with spending. So it's not like I went out and spent a bunch of it. Like I parked it and I invested it, and I made sure that I was going to turn that specific amount into 10 times that.
That's no problem. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. But you meet a lot of people, you give them a check for $80,000, it's gone within 3 weeks, right? So
it just comes down to money management, obviously, and what your goals are. But so you made $85K at that age. What was your next move?
The next move was we bought. So this is with Austin. So the first project was with Austin's older brother. And this project was with Austin. So they're brothers. Okay. And me and Austin bought our first place. And this was 2 streets over. And this was a duplex. And it was illegally, like it was operating as a duplex, but not legal with the city of Guelph. Okay. So this one, it was like it was out for tenders, and the offers were all due. We ended up getting this duplex, but it was also it was tough, really rough shape. Like there's just like things that you don't want to see when you're flipping a house. Like we found like bags of needles in the basement, blood marks all over. It was just gross. But we were excited because we were young. You must have got a good
deal on that one.
We got a good deal on it. Looking back now, that was probably my best business, purchase ever, just because of the fact that it was a lot of work, and I learned way more on that project because the house was leaning. We jacked it up. We fixed the footings. It was just a lot of work. We did it. And because it was 2 units, the first unit we had to get done in 30 days because we wanted cash flow coming in.
Was it a side by side or
front and back?
a front and back,
Yeah.
like a bungalow style?
So the old one,
or-
like the front of the house was the original house from like 1840s or whatever
Yeah.
year it was. It's unconfirmed the actual build date. And then the back of it was like 1920s or 30s. So the front of the house was old electrical, old plumbing. So we had to do all that. And then we repainted it, redid flooring, bathrooms, put in a washer, dryer on the main floor because there wasn't one. So we had to like put in a wall and run plumbing and stuff. And we ended up getting that done in 30 days.
Okay, so just to take a quick step back, were these units entirely independent, like separate heat systems,
Yes.
separate water meters,
Yep.
everything's separate?
Everything's
Okay.
separate.
And it came that way. You bought it that way.
Came that way, but it wasn't running legally. So we
It
had
was
to
illegal,
Get,
yeah.
so we had to get zoning in and prove that it was operating like that since like 1992, which was easy because the finishes it was easy to prove that.
Okay, so they came in and they were agreeable?
Yeah, we
Interesting.
had to do centrally monitored fire systems.
Yeah.
So that's when I got to know the fire department because like the chief would come and inspect it, and me and him had a pretty decent relationship because after that I did another duplex conversion.
Got to make friends with these people.
Exactly. So I
then
just
they'll
give him
help
a
you out,
coffee
right?
and, you know, it went a long way and he would show up
Yeah.
and say, you got to do this, you got to do that, but I'll sign you off today.
Yeah.
So it was not too much, just fire safety. And we had to put a firewall in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all said and done. Once you had that paperwork, the property is worth 30, 40K more immediately. So that was like a big celebration date too.
Yeah, having something be legal versus illegal.
Absolutely.
Because when something's illegal, you have a huge risk, right?
Liability.
What if bylaw enforcement comes out and says you're shut down?
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if you're legal, they can't do that.
Or from an insurance point, something happens and you
Mm-hmm.
can't assure the income if, you know.
Oh, yeah, so they might deny a claim if
right.
your insurance company is, writes it that way.
Yeah, or your tenant complains. There's so
Yeah.
many risks, right? I don't like operating illegally.
I think if you're going to do it, like if you have like an extra bedroom, like in London, you can only have 5 bedrooms. But if I had an extra room that was quote unquote a den, I would happily rent to 6 students and say, hey, you two have to share a room.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't have student houses, so I don't,
Yeah.
that's not applicable to me, but I don't really like operating within the gray area.
It's a risk, right? So if you're going to do it, if you're in a gray area, you have to understand that you are taking a risk and how much are you risking? Is it worth it? Like if you got shut down in 6 months, would you look at that as a horrible waste of money, or would it have paid for itself already, right?
100%.
If you got to spend 40 grand finishing an extra unit
Not worth it.
that's illegal and they get shut down, well, yeah, you're risking something. But I know there are some people who like live and breathe by that. Like,
Yeah, it's a different mentality. It's an older
Yeah.
school mentality. But that's not,
Yeah.
you can't build a business. I don't think in this day and age you can build a business on that. All it takes is one tenant to complain and your name's on somewhere in the zoning book.
You bring up a very good point. If you are thinking building a business, how far down the road are you thinking, right?
Because I'm talking to even now, I'm talking
Yeah.
to zoning every 2 weeks. Like, hey, should I buy this house? Can I put a triplex on a duplex land? The moment
Yeah.
they see my email coming in or a phone, they're like, oh, this, cowboy again, right? So no, it's not worth it.
Your reputation is going to matter.
100%.
And I feel the same way. Like everything I've done, we've been doing it with permits, trying to make sense of everything and I'll involve people from the city just like you will ahead of time, like the building inspector, for instance. So if I'm asking them how to do something, or I'll call the head of the building department, he'll take my call and he'll call me right back if he misses me. And super nice guy. And I just ask him, hey, this is what I want to do. And he'll look it up and they'll work with you.
100%.
And if they see that you're trying to play ball and you're trying to respect their authority, I mean, let's face it, they're in that position and they feel that they should have authority. It's better that you just respect it and try and work with them.
Exactly. I completely agree with you.
And if it's building inspectors, how do you want me to do it? Like you literally go to them and ask them, our plan says this, but I wanted to run it by you real quick. Do you have any special notes for us? We've done that. And that's been the biggest success factor, I would say, in getting building permit inspections passed. When they come out, they pass them, no question, if you talk to them beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're young, so if we see that we're trying to make an effort, they respect that because they're like, well, I can be rude to this guy, but likely he's going to do this again, and it's better to set him on the right foot now.
I like that you keep saying I'm young. That's
Well,
nice.
we are, like, it's true, right? Like, I mean, in theory, like...
You're younger than I am, but...
But from a standpoint of real
you're
estate
right.
investing, like, we are... A lot of people say, like, oh, even now when I pull up the properties, like, oh, is that your... People say, like, oh, is this your dad's house? I find that bothers me so much. Or, is that your dad's truck? And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, it bothers me, but that's just the reality of it.
That's a compliment, if anything. If people assume... I'll have people say that to me when I'm going to look at property. They're like, wait a minute, you're too young to be out doing all this. And it is a different mentality. And I am grateful I look at where I'm at the age I'm at, and I know that I'm well set up for when I turn 60.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to turn it on like crazy right now, so I'm buying yachts and stuff when I'm 60.
That's the plan. I don't want yachts. I just want cash flow. Like I just want that point. But yeah,
that's an exclamation mark. I mean, I think a yacht would be fun, but being completely honest about one of my goals is I have a specific airplane that I want to own. It's a kit plane that can go really fast, and I could actually fly it to Florida. So my wife and I could actually, take our dog, and we could actually just fly right down to Florida.
For the weekend, it's quicker than going to Muskoka.
Yeah. We could, go up to the cottage, like all the things that are possible. So I don't have my pilot's license now, but I know a couple of guys that are pilots. So they kind of got me thinking about it, and man, it'd be fun. So
for sure.
You gotta set a goal if you want to work towards
Absolutely.
it, right? So getting back to this deal that you did, what did you buy that for? The one with Austin?
I think we bought it for like $249 or something, but we did the purchase plus improvement mortgage. So we ended up getting a mortgage for $280.
Okay.
So it was kind of funny on closing. We were all sitting down and we were laughing because we didn't have to really pay for anything except the legal fees. So we're just like, we bought a house, and the way the bank did the adjustment ledger with the lawyer, they didn't really...
They messed it up?
Well, it was Austin's first house, so they rebated the first-time home buyer side of it. And it was like, they just basically told us to pay like $500 or something like that each.
That's
no down payment. Like, it was a weird, because the way the bank structured it, our mortgage was $280. They basically did 100% financing. Well, 110%.
So it was a cash back mortgage?
Essentially, yeah. So what we had to do was do the work, and then they would compensate us based on invoices and draw releases.
That's the typical purchase plus improvements. So we have that here. I believe that you can do a similar thing in the States as well. But basically, you can buy a property and you go get a couple of quotes from a couple of contractors, and you show the lender, and then they'll give you basically. So if you come up with $25,000 as your lowest quote, they will set $25,000 aside with a lawyer. Or, well, if you're 95% financing, then they'll set 95% of 25,000 with the lawyer, and then it just gets released to you. So essentially, the way it's supposed to work out is that you're 5% down after your renovations. So they'll cover your renovations. It's supposed to work out that way. Maybe in your case, it actually didn't work out that way.
Well, maybe once it was all said and done, I'm sure. Yeah, that was. But it just felt weird on closing day not having to write a check to a lawyer.
That's very cool. I think I've told the story one time. I actually got a check back for $1.44.
That's
You might have heard that in the podcast.
I think you did say that.
I love that when people have heard those episodes. So it does feel weird, but you can do that, right? If you're borrowing correctly. So okay, so you got in. So it sounds like you renovated for $30,000 then.
Yeah, it was. We did all. It was all 40. We spent every dollar of the 40. So of the 40,
you said 280 versus 250, right?
240. I think we bought it 241 or something.
Okay, so we'll call it 240 just to keep our numbers square.
240. And we spent 40 just to keep it even.
Okay.
And of the 40, 30 was all on like roof, soffit, everything exterior. Like because it's an older house, we had to insulate it from the outside. Mm-hmm. So we did new siding, new soffit, new fascia, like everything on the outside.
So you wanted to make it look nice, curb appeal.
Of course. It was an older house. It was ugly. It was like stucco was peeling off, and we wanted to make it warm and more efficient for tenants. So like 30 of it went to one trade, and it was like all exterior, but it felt great when it was done. And the rest, we just did it all, chipped away at it and did it ourselves, and spent that $10,000 slowly.
So you made $10,000. What did you get done with $10,000 on the inside?
On the inside, we did the flooring, the paint. Austin was really good at sourcing kitchens. He came down to Burlington on a Kijiji ad, and he pulled this girl's kitchen out for like $200, put it on a trailer. And it was like this beautiful kitchen from IKEA or wherever it was from, but she just wanted a newer kitchen. Maybe she was new to the area, wanted a nice kitchen. But for us, for a rental, it was amazing. Yeah. We did the tile work. We had a buddy that did the tile work. For half of it, we did ourselves, and half of it, he did it. So, and the second unit was the one we took our really sweet time at, because we had tenants in the front. So in the back, by the time it was wintertime, we had we would work on it inside. So we refinished the original hardwood floors, so we didn't have a big flooring expense. We sanded them, sealed them, did trim. We did that all of ourselves. We painted it. So all that kind of stuff. So we really stretched the dollar on the rear unit. I don't think you can do that now with $10,000. It seems like everywhere you turn on a renovation, $10,000 goes pretty quick. So
it does, but I mean, one of my first rentals, that's the way I did it. I was going around to surplus stores, buying everything, end of the roll, like whatever you can get where it's a discontinued line and they're basically just liquidating it. I got crazy good deals, flooring that that was under $1 a square foot to buy. That was a good vinyl, like a vinyl plank. You know, so nice floors, but you know, you do things like that. You can do it in the short term, especially when you're getting started, because it saves you the money and it allows you to have a margin in your deal. And then as you do more, like we talked about, you know, doing things properly, I think finding good suppliers who give a good quality product reliably over and over again at a good price, and contractors that'll do a job at a good price, then you can grow, right? You can't grow if you're running around trying to be everywhere all the time.
No. Luckily, we found this wholesale flooring place in Kitchener, and they got us our trim and our flooring. We went on Boxing Day, so we were able to use cash and leverage and able to wheel and deal a little bit. So that was pretty good. And I still work with them to this day. So
I've got a flooring guy that I use all the time, and he gives me fantastic pricing, but I'll try and give him every bit of business I can. You know, if somebody comes to me and wants to know about floor, I refer him. So he knows I'll always be a good source of business for him. So he always gives me
worth it to drop his margin on your one job.
But he knows I'll just come back. It's really easy for him, easy for me, and it works out. And I think people see that, right? But if you're constantly shopping around, it gets less easy for them, and therefore they gotta charge you a bit more.
Absolutely.
It's funny how it works. And then for stuff as far as like going to big box stores, the only thing I really go to big box stores for are light fixtures and plumbing fixtures. Oh, and like bathroom hardware, like your towel racks and stuff, towel bars.
For sure.
Everything else, I like to just get it through the trades that are doing the work. Just makes it easier. Okay, so you're on this deal. So total all in, you're 280 in.
280 in was the mortgage value once it was all said and done.
Okay. Did you end up selling that one?
No, I still own it. I bought Austin out a few years later. It was about a year and a half later. I bought him out, and I'm still holding it because that's my best cash flow producing property. Because you're not going to buy it for that cheap and cash flow it.
So going back to back when you finished it, what was the cash flow when you got it going?
$1,100 in the front and $1,200 in the rear, and now my front unit's $1,500. And my rear unit's the same tenant, so she's up to like $1,200 or with the small increases every year. So
say $2,300 between the front and the back when you finished. You would have had your mortgage, taxes, maintenance. What do you think you were clearing on a monthly off of that?
Maybe $700.
We'll just say 600. So 600 a month. That's 7,200 a year cash flow to you. So then you've got a mortgage, which you said was 280. So we're gonna just do a quick calculation here. So principal pay down. As you know, I like to use 3% because it's a rough number that seems to work. So if your mortgage is 280, then that's $8,400 a year being paid down on your mortgage, approximately, give or take. And then we've got property appreciation. And what do you think it was worth? I know the purchase plus improvements doesn't really capture the value.
No.
That's just what you were in for.
So we originally planned that to flip that right away. Like we got it, put tenants in it, we put it on the market, and it didn't sell for $399.
That's what you wanted.
That's what we wanted. We got an offer for like $370, and we just didn't take it, and we were like, let's just sit on it for a bit. That was right when we finished the renos. But I just spoke to my realtor last week of what it is valued now, and he thinks it's about $530.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay,
so we'll base our number based on 370 then.
Sure.
So at 370 at the time you finish that reno, times let's say a 3% appreciation rate. We know it's higher in hindsight, but I just like to budget for that. Okay, so our total return here, so $26,000 a year, and your investment was like $500.
Yeah, it was peanuts. Like we probably dumped a little bit into materials later in the project, but nothing crazy.
What do you think ballpark? Like $5,000 or something?
Yeah, like maybe 5. Yeah, just say 10 grand in total at the most.
So 10 grand invested. So your return on investment is huge.
Yeah, but if you divide that number by the amount of hours we worked, then it would be more reasonable. Because I'd love to say that this is 10 grand, but we worked a lot on this deal, and it was fun. We learned, but it wasn't all peaches and rainbows, right? Yeah,
so 267% return on investment.
That's hot. That's good return.
Which is good, except like you said, if you applied a hourly rate to your work.
Which at the time we did keep schedule, because this was my second partnership. So at this point we kept all of our hours tracked, and I can't tell you what that is right now.
Tried to keep it even?
We wanted to, because it was different skill sets and different partner bringing capital, right? So
what was your structure like? I guess no one had to bring the capital, but somebody had to go on the mortgage.
It was like 10 grand or something like that. And the mortgage, we went all on it. But
so both you and Austin?
Austin, yeah. And my brother was on that deal just as like...
guarantor?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. He had a strong job in the city. And I think he was the one that pretty much put in the cash and we put in the work, but Austin had more experience. So
Yeah.
from a dollar per hour basis, I think we ended up allocating his experience worth more than mine, which is totally fair. I was okay with that. It was only my second house, and he's already done 10 with his parents, or whatever.
Oh, so it was Austin's parents that had done.
Yeah, that's
all of
Austin's
this.
parents,
Okay.
and they're still renovating houses and stuff.
So he brought some more experience. Now, did you guys keep your hours into the project of manual labor roughly even as well?
Pretty much. Yeah, I would say so.
Nothing's perfectly even.
It was
but
pretty, we did it all together. Because we originally structured it like it was going to be him working more, but I just love that because I worked at the bank, like all day at the bank. I think about like, I can't wait to go home and like do this and do that.
Swing a hammer.
Most people think I'm nuts, but it's like, it was me and my friends were doing it. So like, we didn't mind going there and, doing that because we were enjoying, it was winter. What else are you going to do in the winter? Like, you can go to the bar and stand in line for an hour and a half, or you can go work at your house and friends come by, have a beer,
Sure.
Away you go.
Yeah, I loved it. I always love going to see my houses. It's just they're so far away.
That's right, yeah. And that's why I to this day, I only stay in Guelph. Like, my market is Guelph. And people say, you're nuts, you're not finding cash flow. It's like, but my 10-minute drive is worth more to me than that cash flow, because I don't want to drive to Delhi to go fix a leaky faucet or, you know what? I just don't want to deal with that right now. Like, I'd rather be very close, and that's what's my interest, right?
Yeah, I mean, London was home for the longest time, so that's kind of why I was there. I'm still well set up there, so I don't have to run around. But yeah, anytime you go to a new area, it's a lot of work getting set up. And being able to go see your properties is worth something.
100%.
For sure. Some people would argue that it's better not to be able to see them, because then you don't have to actually feel like you're the guy that's going to solve a problem when it happens.
But I kind of like that, like solving problems. Like, if it's not overwhelming, like if it's minor stuff, I'm doing it for other landlords too in Guelph, so I'm there. So it's, for me, I'll zip by my place and do this and do that. I still cut the grass, remove snow, I do all that. Because
so you manage your own properties?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And you're doing the landscaping at your own properties too?
Yep, I do pretty much.
So you cut your own lawns?
Yep, snow, and I do snow for other landlords, and
My God. Where do you find the time?
Well, like I said, I stay busy. So
how many properties are you at right now?
Right now, I've got, not including my primary residence, considered 4 doors. So 4
doors.
Yeah.
4 houses or 4 units?
4 units, and then I'm looking for. In the process of looking at a 6-plex. So.
And you're still in your 20s? What, like
26?
26?
Yeah, turning 27 in a month or so.
You still got time.
I got time, but I want to set this up now because I want to be. I look at a 25-year mortgage, so I want to have this all by 30. So at least when I'm 55, I'm retired and I'm making that income coming in. Because it's like we mentioned with Guelph, it's not a cash flow game. So if I buy everything under the age of 30, then at least if I look at my retirement, where I can, the moment I buy my last property, it's paid off by the time I'm 55 or whatever the case is, then that's all free income. So then I can just travel the world and hire a property manager and say, call me if there's a fire, or don't call me at all, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I find this is one of the points I would love to drive home is people spend all this time going to financial planners trying to figure out a retirement strategy. Your retirement strategy is a 25-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage on your rental property. Yes. Depends who you ask, right? Like my financial advisor, he doesn't believe in the real estate game in that aspect. You can argue it, but some people have that opinion and they say the market will always beat real estate. You don't have to go do this. You don't have to do that. But I'm interested in that. But you can. And what else am I going to do on a Friday, or what else am I going to do on a Tuesday night after work? That's what I like to do. I don't have kids. I don't have any of that right now. Maybe once they're playing softball and hockey, right? Then your outlook changes. But right now, I'm trying to make as much. I'm trying to acquire as much debt as possible. And people think that's scary, but it's leverage, and leverage is key in your 20s because that's the way you create wealth. Someone else is taking the risk. Like the bank's taking the risk, you're doing the work. So I think that's a fair trade. Absolutely. Yeah. Just to your point, though, like people say, oh, the market might beat real estate. Sure. I don't disagree depending on what market you're in. If you're in like the S&P 500 over time, I think they say like 10 or 11%. As long as you haven't seen 10, 11, but over a long time indexed. Yes, it could, but you're not going to borrow against that. Not the way you borrow against real estate. You could, but it's just something I'm not comfortable with. I rather touch an asset, feel it. And, I mean, we started with this whole thing. I'm being a farmer, right? So I like hands-on, that kind of aspect of it. I like Yeah.
having an investment that's physically growing. So I don't like the stock market. I do have investments within the stock market, but I don't love it. Like, it just gets me nervous. That's why I don't check it. I don't look at it. My advisor says, just don't even look at it. Okay. I won't look at it.
Well, I mean, for an advisor to say that, sometimes that's scary.
Well, it's emotional, right?
Yeah.
You don't look at your house price every day too, right? Like, there's no stock ticker on your street saying your house went down because your neighbor's basement flooded. You don't realize that those factors influence, just like the stock market.
I think when you add the leverage factor in, like if houses are going up by 2% a year, I think I've given this example before. So if a house is going up by 2% a year, that's $2,000 on a $100,000 house, right? Starts at $100,000, 2% 1 year. That's just inflation, 2%, right? So you're up 2,000, but if you borrowed 80,000 when you bought that house, you were only in for 20.
That's right.
So then $2,000 over 20 is 10%.
That's right.
You're making 10% just on that property going up in value because money is becoming less valuable because of inflation.
Of course.
And then you add on your cash flow and your mortgage pay down. This is why, like, yeah, sure, in the markets, I know people, most of them are getting sub 5%.
Okay.
Some people might get up to 10, doing really well, maybe even get into the above 10.
Okay.
But are they getting into 25, 30%, 40%, 50% that real estate investors are getting? Highly unlikely unless you're Warren Buffett, Ray Dalio, or people who are predicting the market and have some sort of advantage to be able to do so. Some excellent education.
Plus, there's a tax incentive. I mean, we won't dive into taxes because there's probably people listening from the U.S. and
it's even better there.
It's whatever the case is. Most people don't even really consider the tax advantages of having rentals or owning real estate or living in the real estate that's an investment, right? So.
Yeah, so being able to write off the value. So we can do a capital cost allowance here, write off 4% of your net value on your asset, on your house. And so even if you had cash flow, even if you had profit, you can write that profit down. And basically you're deferring tax. And since time is money and money grows over time, the more you can push taxes off into the future, the more you can play with that money and grow it.
Of course.
So the huge advantages. I know we're just getting into a rant as to why invest in real estate, but
that's all right. That's why we're all here.
Well, I like to see how and why other people got into it.
Yeah.
What was it for you versus what was it for me and the next guy. So I think I do find that fascinating. What's your vision for this? Where do you want to go? I know you said, cash flow in 25 years. Is that it?
Well, my vision is not working for someone else during the day. Like, I want to do whatever I want. And if it's cutting grass all day, I don't care because I'll do that. If it's for myself, I want to build my own business. I want to run my own business. So I'm working in commercial banking right now to get the experience. And my boss, if he's listening to this, sorry, but it's the ultimate reality is I'm learning every day from successful business owners. So my goal is to just work for myself. And if it's managing my 40 units, then that's the goal, right? I just want that flexibility of time and not having to feel like stressed about not wanting to go to work. I don't have that feeling right now, but I can see a lot of people have that feeling. So
many do.
Freedom of time is what I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, freedom of choice, right?
Yes.
If you need your job, then you're a slave.
You're a slave. You're trading your time for money.
The question is, am I a slave or am I not? If you can quit tomorrow and it doesn't matter, then you're not. If you're in any other circumstance, then to some degree you are. And I know that some people that's going to rub the wrong way, and I don't mean to cause any offense with that. It's just the ability to choose your day. Yeah. And for me, like I'm not fully there. Like I still have to create active income at this moment. I have passive income, but it doesn't cover everything I do yet. But that's why I'm on this mission. I'm working towards growing it so that I am totally free, just like you say. So we have a very similar goal there.
Yeah, well,
to me, time is everything.
Why I'm sure that's why we're connected, right? Because we have that same. You sparked that interest in me, and it's like thinking of that number that I need just to not work. I think about that number every day. Like I know exactly the number I need to not have to work. And it's not necessarily living high on the hog, but at least it's like I can do whatever I want all day. Like I can pour concrete, I can do whatever I want.
Sometimes that's fun. Like I like making stuff.
If it's my own job, then every year I can build my own house, move into it, and then move again. And you can do whatever you want. So that's what I'm.
Fun as long as the gun's not to your head, right? Like I like renos. I've framed a basement before, and I found it fun. But I also was under a bit of a time crunch. Like I love the idea of doing that kind of thing when there's no rush. I could take my time, or I could go really quickly, but that's up to me.
Yes.
Those are fun. Like I like making stuff. Sounds like you do too. Everyone's got their thing though. I think some people, I don't know if it's true that anyone actually does just like spending money. I don't think that's actually true.
Well, they call it retail therapy.
I know, but I feel like it's like sort of a deficiency. I mean, I think you can like
material items are not going to get you happy.
Maybe so in the short term, right?
The moment you get over that, you have to look within yourself to figure out what's going to make you happy and then do that. And if you're miserable doing something, don't do it. Like it doesn't, you can change, you can make a change. Then Absolutely. You see those people who have just rolling those miserable feelings and it's affecting everyone around you. Like I can walk into a room and feel the energy. I'm just like, I'm out. I'm not going to be in here. It's not worth it. I can feel the energy.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be somewhere where I'm like excited or doing something.
Yeah. Choose your surroundings.
That's right.
Choose your daily life. I heard an interesting quote. I was just telling you before we got started here, Dan, that I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when it was like, I don't know, maybe 2012, somewhere around then. And I just started listening to it on Audible. I was driving, and one of the interesting quotes from the book, and it's such a good book, it just reminded me how good it is if you find yourself in a hole that you've dug, stop digging.
That's true, right?
Yeah, it seems so obvious, right? Such simple advice.
That's right.
Stop digging.
Dig some steps out.
Yeah, maybe build a staircase.
Yeah.
So anyways, just a side tangent there. Okay, so your vision is to be able to make it happen, make up your days as you choose. Do you feel comfortable sharing that number, or what's the number for you?
All I need is $4,000.
$4,000, that's a lean.
Yeah. So because realistically, if that's my minimum, then I have the whole day to make that extra. And I don't want to be greedy. I have my forever home. I have what I need, and $4,000 is a month is a number where it's like I can tell my boss, where to go, right? So that's the number where I feel it's a starting point.
Right.
Some people may say it's $20,000 a month, but $4,000 is a minimum, is what I would what I would like to not be able to go to work every day.
Yeah, so you're kind of saying, well, that covers your mortgage payment, that covers your property taxes, and if you didn't want to get out of bed for the next 3 weeks, that would be okay.
I'd get bored, but
yes,
probably 2 days to chill, and then just back at it.
So that's baseline. That's my boredom factor.
Baseline boredom. That's traveling. Like you can travel on that much if you have. That's fine.
Well, if you want to go, I know we've spoken about going to Asia and how you can stretch the dollar there. I mean, you legitimately probably at $2,000 a month.
Oh yeah.
If you didn't have a house here,
we go to Asia every year just because it's like you go to Mexico for a week or you can go to Asia for 3, and it's like obviously I'm going to Asia because you can live like a king and queen there. It's amazing. Food's amazing. The weather's amazing. Yeah, you got to sit on a plane for 15 hours, but if you can make your layover a trip in itself, that's what makes it fun.
Interesting. How many times have you been to Asia?
We've gone the past 3 years in a row, and we're gonna go one more time this following spring, like spring 2020. We're gonna try and do Thailand and I don't know, wherever the layover is, and we make a trip of it. So,
which country?
We just came back from Vietnam and Japan. Last year we went to Bali and China, and it's so far we really like it.
And which country would you say is your favorite?
Well, hands down, me and my fiance both love Bali. Like Bali. It's amazing. Like for $50 US a night, your hotel is like a pool right outside. It's 30 degrees every day. The food's amazing. The people they're so friendly. It's just so inexpensive, but that's not the reason. It's amazing. I'd recommend going. And everyone who says like, oh, where do you recommend going? Go to Bali. Like we went to Vietnam. It was amazing. The food was good, but I would way rather recommend go to Bali instead. Yeah.
And my wife's on board with that. I know we talked about it for the honeymoon. She's like, that's just a little too far right now. But I would absolutely love to go there.
You got to go for 3 weeks, right? 2-3 weeks at least.
Just for the jet lag?
Well, not even that. I mean, you get used to it. 15 hours, like to someone listening to this, they're like, oh, I can't do that. But, you stay up the night before. We plan a lot of stuff. So we're very tired once we get to the airport. We go to the first class lounge. We have a few drinks. And then, there's a vitamin called melatonin. And you just take it just before you go. And you pretty much sleep the whole flight. You wake up, you eat, and then... they keep feeding you on those long flights, right? So you wake up, you eat, you go back to bed, and there's entertainment, and it's fine.
Yeah, that's all right. No, it's nothing. Like one of the other places I've been, which is a super long flight, Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I know we digress, but it is all part of it, right? This is why
Well,
this
this
is
is
why
what our
I do
interests are,
the
yeah.
financial independence, right? So what you've described, you know, as that baseline, that's sort of what guys in the FIRE movement, they call lean FIRE, so lean financial independence, retire early. Everyone has their own number. Like I think if we were to, you know, live on food stamps and what have you, we could probably do it somewhere around there. Maybe because we're in Burlington, maybe closer to like 6 between my wife and I. But, you know, that's not going to do everything we want to do. Curious, how much time have you given yourself to achieve your goal?
Well, I usually set new goals every 5 years because I plan them for longer, but I end up doing them quicker.
But your number, your 4K, to be able to.
I want to try and do it in 5 years.
Within 5 years.
Yeah.
So basically,
32 years old, I want to be.
You're out. You're no longer working.
Yeah, that's right.
Never again.
I'm gonna try my best. I mean, even if I'm working at 32, I'm probably just gonna be slowing right down too. But
sure,
that's my plan. And in the meantime, I have to build another business or something that will help get me flowing on the day I retire, right, from my banking career. So.
Well, you can build that cash flow with real estate.
That's right. But where I am, it's more speculative. Like you're not going to get the cash flow because properties are worth more. So I can do more flips and stuff in the winter, which is fine. But it's just building that service business, which a lot of people hate. But I want to service the landlord so that they can.
Okay.
You know, like I can build a name for myself, and I've done it for a few years already, and I enjoy it. Some landlords are a pain in the ass, but for the most part, I enjoy it.
Okay. How many properties are you managing for people?
Like I would say it depends on what service, but on average between 20 and 30 units, I'd say.
Yeah.
And they're usually multiplex buildings, so it's a little bit easier in terms of management because it's not like I'm going to 30 different houses, it's more buildings.
And you're just charging a percentage of rent or?
Yeah, it's more of, depends on the agreement. Everything's a little bit different. So some of them are just maintenance on the property. Some of them are one-off. Some of them are vacation coverage. Some of them so there's so many different things and I'm customized. I'm not a big management company, so I can be unique in my structure and everything like that.
So just to your point before, you say real estate in Guelph, hard to cash flow. I've heard the same. What I would say is there's still always a way to find value where others don't see it. So I know Airbnb's become a bigger thing. I don't know if that's an option in Guelph or if they have laws against that. Might be an option there to get some cash flow when you didn't think that it was possible. And then the other thing is just doing what you're doing and going in and meeting with the city and finding out what they need or finding out what they're open or a new initiative coming, right? Like when they approved secondary dwelling units and maybe if you convert them on a dime, maybe you could cash flow that way.
So I've done that. I've done duplex conversions. They're awesome. Like I've made a good buck doing a few of those. I like it, and that's an opportunity too. That's a winter project for me. Like you're inside, so you can do the fire doors and this and that, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I'm open to anything really.
How many properties have you flipped like that you've sold?
Like 5 or 6, I think.
5 or 6, plus the 4 that you own and kept. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been pretty active in your 6 years, 5 years.
I'm always I try and do 2 or 3 deals a year with my realtor. So
whether
buy or sell or do something, I'm always trying to upgrade
or flip.
Yeah.
Or both. Yeah.
So if it's a primary residence, I have to live there for a year, that's okay, and then move so I've done that as well. So
I know you're still early in the game, but what's something that you would recommend to somebody getting started as something that they need to be aware of, a piece of advice?
I would say everyone just they're so anxious about pulling the trigger to start out. Like, don't be afraid to ask your parents for a cosign and just say, hey, listen, mom or dad, I'll pull you off in 6 months. Just, the property values are so expensive. I can't get in. Well, if you keep waiting, they're just going to get more expensive. Suck it up and just put an offer in because you're not going to get one on your first house. So just get in there because that was the best thing I ever did was bought a property. And I was so nervous at the time and I was like, this is going to blow up in my face. It's not going to work, but it ended up being the best decision that I've ever done. So I would say just don't worry, just have fun with it and enjoy it and try not to worry. Don't sweat the small things. Mortgage is just 12 payments, right? When you think about that, it's only 12 payments a year. So 12 is not a tough number. Anyone can scrape together 12 payments, right? You just got to think outside the box there.
Okay, so simplify it. What is something that you would recommend people or caution people against when they're getting started in real estate investment?
Partnerships for me was was a yin and a yang. It was really good because I was able to be successful and we learned a lot from each other. But you really have to have stuff ironed out before you take ownership. Write stuff down just so that everything's clear. I'm going to do the work, or we're going to split the work, or you're going to put up the money, and this is why it's documented. Leave a file at your lawyer's office so that everyone knows it's all clear. When I was younger, it wasn't a big deal, but as the properties gained value, it became a pressing issue because someone wanted their money out. And it was like, well, we weren't going to pull our money out till this time. And I would just say be clear with your, if you are going to partner with a buddy and say, we're going to buy our first place, just be clear with them off the get-go, write stuff down, and just, it will work very well if you just write it down and document it.
Now, without experience, it's probably pretty hard for people to know what's going to come up, right? Because if you haven't been through it, how are you going to know? Like you brought up a good point that, you know, sometimes your partner wants out. Well, did you have something written down for that? What if you never even thought about that? So if somebody hasn't done a joint venture partnership yet, is there somewhere they should look, some person they should talk to?
Well, mentors are the most important. Like we're building this kind of mentorship group, this networking group. So it's just about asking people who have done it in the industry. My parents, when I told them I was buying my first property, they're like, you're buying with a partner. I don't recommend it. Just go with yourself. We'll help you out. But at the time, they weren't going to help. Like it wasn't like that. Yeah. So I was like, I'm just going to do this because this is how I have to get it. And if I learn, it's going to be a $10,000 lesson. Like who cares? Like it's, you know, it's a lot of money now, but it's going to save me a lot later. So I would say there's always people that could, your lawyer, either way, you're going to sit down with them when you buy a house anyway. So they'll recommend what they see, right? So
certainly you can talk to your lawyer. If you deal with a lawyer that deals with a lot of investors that do that type of investment, then they could probably put you on the right track. You do have to be aware of the implications. If you're bringing two people onto a house, then they both have to go on the mortgage. So
that's right.
You're going to want to make sure you know who you're getting into a deal with, and make sure that they can qualify.
Yep.
So there's obviously many things to know. You bring up a great point. Network, get out there and do meetups, because guaranteed there are other people out there who have done JVs in your area who can, you know, maybe even give you a sample contract that they've used. That's gold, right? If you can get a sample contract somebody else has used, and then you see, oh, that makes sense. It's really cool that you did that.
Well, I just started listening to your podcast and attending the meetings. I've learned more probably in the last 6 months, or however, since February you've been doing this, than I have in the last few years scraping my knees and figuring it out, just because I've came to every meeting with an objective or like, hey, what are you doing this? Or, you know, going with a problem that someone else has. And for the most part, I get it solved every time there's a meetup. There's a meetup, because everyone's gone through the issue.
I didn't realize that. I haven't heard a testimony like that. So
there you go.
We'll have to get that one for the Facebook group. Dan, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, connect with you, learn more about you and what you're doing, what's the best way?
I'm on Instagram, and I'm sure you'll paste my handle.
I can put I can put your Instagram handle in.
I don't really use Facebook. Other than that, Instagram, you can message me. Just message me through Instagram. We can email, whatever. I'm always looking to connect and build a network.
Yeah, sure. Maybe some people from Guelph are wanting to connect. You know,
absolutely.
Maybe they want you to manage their properties.
Yeah. Maybe next time we'll talk farming.
That was one of my follow-up questions. Okay, so we got time for a couple more questions to get to know you. Farming-wise, what are you doing? Where did it start?
So a lot of people think of farmers as like, you know, dairy farmers milking cows every day. I'm essentially a contract farmer. So what I do is I grow grains. I grow soybeans, corn, and wheat. And grains are traded on the commodity markets. So it's a futures market. So essentially what I do is I do own a bit of farmland, 60 acres, which I'm in the process of selling to, you know, purchase more real estate assets, which I think is a better investment at this point, because I rent farmland. So what I do is I rent farmland off people who own farmland, investors, developers usually. And then what I'll do is I'll own the fertilizer, I'll own the seed, I'll hire someone to plant the seed, spray the crops, harvest the crops, and essentially I focus on selling the crops. So I watch the markets, I pick the prices, and then deliver them at harvest time. So
you just subcontract the whole thing out?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't own anything except a pickup truck, and a lot of guys think, you're nuts, how are you making a buck? Well, I'm watching the markets while you're sitting in a tractor seat, so I can pick a price that you may have missed, right? So
you basically find a contract to sell.
Exactly.
And you just lock that in.
Lock it in and then deliver it when the harvest is there. You have to have a little bit of experience in the field, the crop, because you don't want to overextend yourself by agreeing you can sell, 80 ton when you can only deliver 40, right? Because then you're on the hook for that 40.
So you're knowledgeable about farming. Did your family, they were into farming? Or?
No, not really. I went to school for ag economics in Guelph, but it was just more of an opportunity landed on my lap. And I was like, I can't say no to this. I rented 40 acres in my last year of university, just before I bought that last house, or my first house. And I grew soybeans. I made a buck at it, and I just enjoyed it. And I kept looking for more land. So I've been doing that for just as long as I've been in real estate. So about 7 years now too.
Very cool. Yeah. Very unique. You're a guy who's not afraid to be an entrepreneur in many fields.
I'm not afraid to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's your hobby outside of real estate and traveling to Bali?
My favorite hobby is traveling. But besides that, I would say right now we live in the country just outside of Guelph. So I'm really into like gardening right now. I have a chicken coop. So I'm doing that kind of stuff, which I've never had my own place that I can garden because I've always been just working on properties. So I'm doing that bit of gardening, hanging out with friends, having bonfires because we live in the country, so we can do all that. So
beautiful. So embracing the country lifestyle.
Embracing it all. Living. So the dream is to live on a farm, but till then.
So you're not on a farm now?
My farm's strictly investment, and I'm in the process of selling that to purchase a multi-unit. So farming is great in terms of return on investment, but I find from the amount of capital you have to put into a field to buy a farm, I would way rather put it into a real estate asset because of the cash flow aspect of it. Now we can get it. That's a separate podcast.
But you can rent out land. Yeah, there's probably a whole.
But it doesn't cash flow. Farms don't cash flow like a property does. So for example, $1 million farm, you're gonna have to make those mortgage payments. But $1 million apartment building, chances are it's cash flowing to cover itself, and then at that point you're in good shape.
So obviously a side conversation. I know that some people do rent out their land, right? They own it and they rent it out. Can you cash flow in that circumstance?
No.
No, still not?
Not right now. No, not in Ontario. Like in Saskatchewan, big time. In Alberta, but not here, no. Way there's so many supply managed farms around here, dairy farmers, poultry farmers, the price has exceeded the value in which cash flow, or it makes it a cash flow positive investment.
Okay, so it's just become too expensive to buy the land.
And that's why even my farm land that I have a house on the property, and the only way I can make it work is because it's rented out to tenants. Very interesting. You're right. We could definitely do a whole episode on that. We could do a whole. But we'll leave that for the next time you come back. Dan, you're an interesting guy, young guy, so I'll be interested to see what you do over the next few years, and hopefully you're lighting it up and getting it done before 32. Awesome. Yeah, well, thanks a lot for having me, and I'll hope to see everyone at the REI meetup in Greater Hamilton area. Yeah, come on out to the next meetup. The next one's in August, and I don't have the exact date, but the link will be in the show notes for the meetup group if you're in the Golden Horseshoe and you'd like to come out. So, all right, thanks a lot, Dan. Okay. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.